I summon you.
Oh, yes.
I summon you closer.
You summoning me. Puis là, c'est bon ça.
Si tu me parles comme ça, là.
Ben, Colin Devin.
I only learned today that your name Stephan is written without an E. We did your numerology, and I think I did it with the E.
Yeah, I had it removed when I was 16 because of
Why?
insecurities. Because, you know, Stephan, when you're raised in Calgary, a very English-speaking environment.
Right.
With an E at the end, yeah, and you're a very young child and you keep being called Stephanie, it affects you.
I believe you. We all have stories, don't we? Good story. Welcome to Reroot. My name is Cynthia Leconte, and I am sitting here today with Stephan Guenette, co-founder of IMfit Health Innovations, as well as founder of Kinetic Intelligence.
Yes, that's right.
Well I got done. It right this time.
You got it right.
That's amazing. Stephan, it's so great to have you here on the show. My background very much is in the fitness industry, so I was so excited to have you here today because I know you're going to demystify or demythify a lot of the preconceptions that we have around getting fit and moving our bodies. So, Stephan, I give you carte blanche, full permission to evolve our truths about movement.
Wonderful. Well, why don't we go back to the 1600s then? Let's go on a journey.
Before you go there, I want to tell everybody, like, if you look at Stephan, I know him a little bit on a personal level, and I always refer to him, or we refer to him as the warrior. Now, you can look at Stephan and he looks like the warrior. So I just think it's so appropriate that we're going back to the 1600s.
That's right. We're going to go all the way back to the 1600s, where a lot of these misconceptions were created. And we'll move forward into current times and see what contemporary anatomists have to say.
Love it.
Somanauts, explorers of the inner space, have to say about movement in the body. Are you ready?
We're ready. So ready.
Okay, we're going to Italy. Yes. We're going to go visit Giovanni Borelli. Okay? This is an anatomist at that time. And he's also regarded as the father of biomechanics. Now, it's now come to light that there's a few errors with some of his findings. Don't get me wrong, he's a brilliant man, made a whole bunch of valuable discoveries. But like others, you know, we only know what we know at the time. And so one of the things this anatomist would do is, in order to understand how is the body like a machine, why he's calling it biomechanics. So let's understand the body as a machine. If I cut off the arm from the shoulder here, and I bend the elbow, the upper arm and the elbow, that looks like a lever, that looks like a hinge. These must be hinges and levers. Okay. When you dissect and isolate, it has that perception. But what we now know is that there are no levers in the body. There are no hinges in the body. Everything is an omnidirectional, multimodal, dynamic system that influences itself in the micro and in the macro, locally and globally throughout the body. So there's these influences happening everywhere. So one of the things that he put forth is that, oh, these are levers and hinges. Look at the body as a machine rather than an organism. This is what we need to understand now, is that when you refer to your body, please stop referring to it as a machine. It is an organism. It's one contained whole. It's a system. Not there are isolations, but all the isolations are compartmentalized and integrated into other segments, much like the wedge of an orange is integrated within the whole of the orange. It's all connected. So that was one of the things. So looking at the body as a machine, hinges and levers. The other thing too that was brought forth is this agonist-antagonist type of mindset, that things are in opposition to each other. And another thing that was brought forth is this idea that the entire skeletal structure, it's a compression frame structure, that everything's stacked one on the other. So let's pick away at each one of these and see why it was maybe understood that way and why it's not so recognized to be that way now. Okay, so let's start with the first one. I've already touched on it a little bit. Hinges and levers. So often when we say what's a hinge joint in the body, people will look to the knee and the elbow because they follow this linear plane of motion. But now when we look at the body and the organism as this dynamic vessel, we see that there is no such thing as a singular plane of motion. Even though we can identify the frontal plane, transverse plane, sagittal planes, all these different planes of motion, the truth is there's always this dynamic spiraling type of interaction that's taking place. And in fact, all the joints move in a way that's referred to as chiral, chirality. So in this spiral type of behavior, as it winds and unwinds, even this motion, it doesn't appear to look like it's omnidirectional and multimodal, but in fact it is. Forces are scattering in all kinds of different ways. And also the influence of how the forces are scattered are dictated by the way the engagements of the surrounding tissue are occurring. So that leads us into the next point around agonist and antagonist. Okay.
Hear you.
So with the agonist-antagonist idea, we've been trained to think that, okay, well, let's use bicep, tricep as the example that,
it's pretty typical.
you know, when I do a bicep curl, I need to engage bicep to come up, and tricep, I don't want that engaged because that does this, bicep does this. That's the misconception. And what we're realizing in our practice a lot is that people who have tendinitis, oftentimes we're noticing it's one of the key factors is misdistribution of force. Someone who's always using one side of the body too much rather than sharing the load with another side.
Right.
So the idea of muscles being agonist, antagonist in opposition of each other is false and actually leads to a lot of dysfunction. You see, you'll actually notice that you're significantly stronger when you're able to engage the tissues all around any given area. So think of this. You see a boulder over there. Would you like to roll it by yourself, see if you can push it up the hill, or would you like help from 10 other people?
I'll pick 10 other people, yes.
For sure. Many hands make light work. The body work operates in this way as well. So it likes to recruit some support. So rather than relying on bicep to be both the stabilizer and the mobilizer, why don't we get triceps in the game? Now triceps help stabilize, biceps help mobilize. Now we have a more even distribution of force. Now this much force doesn't go here. This much force goes here throughout the structure. It's shared. And so you'll notice that you end up being stronger with what feels like equal or less effort. And that's a phenomenal concept. And you'll also be able to do so in a way that's much safer for you. You're protecting yourself. That principle applies throughout the body. That's the really cool thing. And so not only is it a safer way to move, it's a stronger way to move. And it's a more efficient way to move.
I can't wait to hear about how that translates in an actual workout.
Let's taste it. Do you want to taste it right now?
I do.
Yeah, let's all taste it together. Let's take our hands.
Okay, got a hand.
And let's just make a fist. Okay, let's open it up again and slowly make a fist. Notice what you notice. Let's open it up again. This time, let's really extend that hand. Splay those fingers out. Great. Now keep that quality of splay as you make a fist. Keep stretching and expanding your fingers as you make a fist. Do you notice a difference in quality?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can feel that the tension dispersion is now all around the hand, as opposed to if I just close my hand, it's more on the inside because I'm pulling inwards. So I feel it. It's like it's really like a full hand tension.
You've heard the term golfer's elbow, or maybe the fancy term is medial epicondylitis. You've got about 24 muscles in your forearm. And a lot of the ones that are flexors attached to the inside here, medial epicondyle. And then you've heard the term tennis elbow, I'm sure. So tennis elbow has to do with the extensors. The extensors, most of them attach to the outside of this. That's called the lateral epicondyle. And so a lot of, you'll get tennis elbow or things that require more extension-based movement here, or more flexor-based movements here. But now with this new awareness of how to actually connect and engage, you could be a tennis player or a golfer player and not succumb to any of these issues because you're now distributing force more evenly throughout the structure. There's a sharing of the load.
So this is something that you do throughout any sport, well, not necessarily movement throughout your day, but when you exert a certain force, so working out or doing a sport, you then become mindful in a very different way of how you are holding your load,
Yes.
the thing that
So
you're holding, right?
so let's look at the body instead of all these isolated bits. I want you to just conceptualize, see what it feels like in your body to change the perception of the fact that you have 630 plus muscles housed in 630 plus sacs. And instead think of it as you have one muscle that happens to be housed in 630 plus sacs.
Hmm.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything is one. If you don't, another way to conceive of this is many of you have probably heard of Bruce Lee and his one-inch punch and how he can launch people across. Other people have also demonstrated this ability. He's not just punching from here. What you're not seeing is his big toe is engaged, his pinky toe is engaged, his calf is engaged in the punch. Every aspect of the body is engaged in that punch. You're loading this one muscle that happens to be housed in all these different compartments. And you're using all of these muscles as one muscle because it is one muscle.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, your potential for force distribution is significantly increased. Because force is mass times velocity. So your mass is fixed, but you can change the velocity based on how you load and unload the tension in your body.
Mm.
So it's a really neat way to start to think about things. And that also speaks to why it's so important to have a little bit of pre-tension before you do any movement.
Absolutely. So, and I'm really hearing kind of the holistic concept, or I'll say the holistic aspect of what you're talking about as well. It, once again, you said it earlier, you said like it works as a unit. It is one, just like we are all one. It's all, again, part of the same unit, as opposed to being all these different parts that we're working exclusively. And that's really beautiful. I think it makes so much sense. And you're talking just on, let's call it like a muscular skeletal level. I can imagine how that all integrates itself with the organs of our body, with our energy, with our mood, with our mentality, with everything.
That's right, because what we're addressing and what we do with our center here is we address through manual therapy and through movement practice the fascial tissue, because the fascial tissue is what acts as that unifying membrane that connects everything to itself and also separates everything from itself. But it's this communication superhighway, and it's also this structural support network. And we can talk about a few. There's 5 things I like to share about fascia and some of its unique qualities that we can get into afterwards. But
absolutely,
a lot of this ability to share and distribute force and manage force and communicate properly is through this system. Okay, ready to go to the next piece?
Next piece.
So the next one was talking about how the third thing, or third of many other things that Borelli spoke about, was this idea that the structure it's a compression frame base. So when we look at the skeleton, a lot of us are taught that it's this bone is then stacked on that bone, stacked on that bone, stacked on that bone.
Right.
One thing you need to realize, so here's the other trip, is not only are, in terms of the muscular system, are you one muscle housed in several sacs, you're also floating inside your body. So just with that awareness, what would it feel like? What do you think it would feel like to feel like you're floating inside your body? Just go ahead and feel it in your body right now. Whatever that means to you, what does it feel like to float? You might not be aware of it, but you're now starting to engage certain muscles throughout your body in an eccentric way, in a way that's opposing gravity, in a way that's more lengthening. Because we forget, oftentimes when we think of muscle contraction, we think of concentric contraction. We think of shortening. And I do this because there's no such thing as shortening and lengthening in the body, and I'll give you a demonstration for why that is.
I can't wait to hear it.
But we're not shortening, or we're just shape changing, going into a different shape and then expanding into another. So actually, a good example, might as well show you right now. This is a Hoberman sphere, for example. If you look closely, you'll see that all of these components are fixed in size. That it's hard plastic. So this is a concentric contraction, okay, or a shortening. This is an eccentric contraction. This is an exhale. This is an inhale. This is the bladder emptying. This is the bladder filling. This is your muscle contracting in a shortening position and expanding into a lengthening position. You see, nothing is actually shortening or lengthening. What's happening? It's a shape change.
Right.
So we have this idea, if we go to muscles, the smallest aspect of a muscle is in the sarcomere, and inside the sarcomere is the actin and the myosin. And we often viewed that when you contract in a shortened state, in a concentric contraction, that they glide short like this. And then when you expand into a stretch, they go out like that. And this is the full expression of the muscle. It's from maximum contraction, maximum stretch. Anything past this and you're tearing. Most people are here because of just having a little bit of tension. But now what we know is that it's not so much a glide back and forth like this that happens with contractions. It's actually a folding and an unfolding. Folding, unfolding. So that's why I say it's a shape change. And a lot of this I learned through a few key people, notable people in the world of biotensegrity. One of them is John Sharkey and Joanne Avison. Graham Scarr is another. He wrote a book called Biotensegrity, and in fact, the person who coined the term is Dr. Stephan Levin. That's where some of these concepts come from. So we're going back to this concept of floating. Okay.
Floating, yes.
Yeah. So the reason you're floating and you're not stacked is because everything, think of your entire body as floating in a sea of tension and compression. Compressive forces from gravity, and then you're meeting that force with the ground reaction force that creates this tensional element. So it's this dynamic, a very dynamic dance between compression and tension throughout the body. Continuous tension with discontinuous compression. So you always want to feel in your body a little bit of a sense of expansion. And what happens when you do that in your body, when you allow yourself to expand?
There's a lot more ease.
What's that?
There's ease. I can feel it already. Like I almost feel like there's a lifting aspect. You know, it's almost like, it's funny to say, but I almost got into a meditative state when I focused on it. I was just like, whoop. It was all of a sudden I became lighter. Like I just went like this. That's what I did. I went like this.
Could you imagine what that would do to your demeanor, to your outlook? You know, this now goes back to some of the studies Amy Cuddy, you might be familiar with. She wrote, or she speaks a lot about power postures and how if you hold yourself in a certain position for 2 minutes, an expansive position, there's hormonal changes that occur in the body that elicit a greater sense of confidence. You're expanding. So that's why one of the things that they're often encourage is before an interview, for example, do not be on your phone if possible, because most people when they're on their phone, they're like this. They're collapsed. What's that doing not only to how you show up in the world, but also mentally? You know, you're shutting down, you're closed. So these little things go a long way. You know, the way you think can eventually start becoming etched in the way you show up in the body, in the world, and vice versa. Maybe certain movement patterns that you have could eventually permeate into your psyche and how you engage with your own self and with the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That just demonstrates right there how important posture is. And that's just the beginning. I've studied, you know, I've read a lot about posture, and there's so much involved in posture, not just on a physical level, but we're talking emotional and mental, and in terms of having confidence and even health benefits. Your breathing changes when you have good posture. You have more energy. You look better. You know, so like on the most basic level, you look better.
Yeah, it's becoming a sexy thing, isn't it? Actually, it's so a few months ago, I was going by down. I live in Victoria right now. And I was going by downtown one of the shops. It was a Gap going out of business, and they were selling everything. So I went in to take a peek, and they're selling mannequins. And I look at these mannequins, and oh my God, it was like this kind of stuff. Like dysfunction has become so celebrated. Imbalance is celebrated. Like that sex appeal is having scoliosis in a sense, like or eliciting that type of body position.
Yeah, yeah, like women sticking out their bums, kind of like loosening their pelvis when they stand and things like that. I've
Yeah.
seen it before.
And I want to be clear, what I'm sharing, it's not meant to be an umbrella for everything, because some people have certain pathologies that prevent them from being in certain positions, and other people are in certain positions but have very uh, um, juxtaposed mental states, like Eckhart Tolle, for example, Um, so, so yeah, that's not meant to be a blanket statement on everyone. There's always exceptions to everything.
Yeah, and it
Um,
doesn't mean that these people don't have things, when you look at a body, there's a way that the body is meant to hold, and we don't know what happens in the long run too. It doesn't
that's
mean that I have bad posture today, that I have health issues necessarily or emotional issues necessarily. It's a wear and tear. It's like eventually if I keep having, let's say, the rounded shoulders, well, it's not going to go backwards, that's for sure. So I'm just going to get more and more constricted this way and crush my lungs more and more, and eventually the wear and tear aspect can cause certain health issues.
yeah, absolutely. So I heard you say proper posture, correct posture. If we explore it very simply, proper posture is just where all the joints are basically the bones interacting in the joint spaces are centrated or in a neutral stacked alignment. Like if my shoulder's really far forward, this is the cap of my acromion, the shoulder blade, or the edge of the shoulder blade. And then this is my humerus. If it's too far forward, then it's going to grind and jam on the front part every time I move.
Mm,
But if it's neutral in the socket, I have full free range of motion. It's
that
kind of a two-edged sword. Joints where we have the most range of motion are also the joints that have the most susceptibility for injury. So it's really
yeah.
important that all motion comes from an origin point of neutrality, of centralization. And that's where creating a little bit of pretension and a sense of expansion prior to doing your movement helps you keep that joint neutral, helps you maximize the amount of range of motion expression, and also force distribution. Not only so you can move more force more efficiently, but also if you happen to fall, your body I'm thinking of Black Panther, that kinetic suit, is able to take force and distribute it instead of localize it into one area.
Your sound just went.
My sound went?
Oh, that was weird. Okay, when you did that, it's like all of a sudden I didn't hear anything anymore.
Okay.
Okay. I was like,
Yeah. So that's an important piece. There is knowing about pretension with movement. So I guess at baseline, anyone wanting to get into a movement practice, just move, right? Just move, because just moving has a lot of benefits, especially with your venous system, because your veins, especially below your heart, 60% of your blood flow is in your veins at any given time. A lot of it is below the heart. Rely on movement, muscle contraction to get that blood back up. That's one reason why we refer to our calves as our secondary heart, because it helps pump that venous blood back up. What it also helps pump is the lymphatic fluid, which we have a significant amount throughout our body. And lymphatic fluid relies a lot on contraction, movement, even digestion. Anything that causes movement in the body, that supports its ability to flow. Now, the lymphatic vessels are part of the lymphatic system, and the lymphatic system is an important component of your immune system, of your health. It's a waste management system, to put it very, very simply.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. We don't think about that when we move necessarily.
No, but that's why if you're a sedentary person, just move. But if you're going to start getting into a movement practice or a movement habit, you have to start being very mindful about how you're moving.
So
Because,
right. my question to that, is, let's say you have your regular Joe that goes to the gym. I want to know what it looks like. Somebody that does it unknowingly versus somebody that would do it under the new concepts that you're bringing to the table. So let's say you got Joe coming into the gym and he goes and he does his bench press, and or he'll do his warm up, he'll do his bench press, and he'll do his lat pull downs, and he'll do his walking lunges, and he'll do all of his things. How would you tweak that? So what would it
Hmm.
look like if you took on Joe and said, "Hey Joe, can I give you a few pointers?"
We start by removing momentum. Okay, because a lot of people hide behind momentum. Now, different practices can be good for someone. Even walking has the potential to destroy someone or enhance someone. CrossFit can destroy someone or enhance someone. Yoga can do the same. So it's how you engage with it. So first thing we would do is remove momentum. Because
What
when
does
you remove
that
momentum,
mean?
just space. Go slow and controlled. Because when you're
Okay,
now
okay.
going
So,
slow and
okay.
controlled, your body can't cheat. You know, like if you want to know if you have any imbalances or issues with walking, walk at like a hyper slow-mo pace, and you'll find out pretty quick where you're weak and where you're cheating in a sense. Because we can hide our weaknesses behind speed, behind momentum, by just going a little bit faster so you don't have to actually engage appropriately through that specific range. So by moving through space in a slow and controlled way, you're able to get very clear on how to engage, and you're able to allow the tissues the opportunity to get educated on how to connect and communicate and move through space.
Okay,
So
so reducing momentum or reducing speed.
yeah, because your body has all these fail-safe mechanisms in place. One of them is it's called the ligamentomuscular signal. So if too much force, for example, is going through one area, like I'm doing a bicep curl and I'm only using my bicep, I won't be able to, I might have more strength available, but I'm not going to get access to it because my ligaments are registering that there's too much force coming through on one aspect of the joint, and will send a signal to the muscle and shut it down to protect itself.
Ah, so interesting. So now you're going to coach the person to focus on using all of the muscles that surround the joint, like we were talking about earlier, no antagonist, protagonist, and forget the unidirectional hinging concept, but really engaging everything that goes around it, as
Yeah.
well as the muscle that you're engaging, and therefore honing in on the full potential of force that you can have.
Yeah, so let's, rather than referring to it agonist, antagonist, or opposition, muscles in opposition of each other, let's refer to them as synergists,
Synergists. Got
right?
it. Yep.
They're complementary. They work together. One can mobilize while the other stabilizes. So going back to the bicep tricep, I'm having a concentric contraction with the bicep
Yep.
as I create an eccentric contraction with the tricep, and then vice versa when I go back down.
Like this one.
Yep, exactly. Share the load. Don't
Share
make
the
things harder than
load,
they need to be.
share the love.
Yeah, it's very simple, the concepts, but in principle they can be difficult to apply because we're having to fight against old programming. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you're saying totally makes sense though. And it's true.
mhm,
Usually you do a bicep curl, you're working your biceps, and you do a squat and you're working your quads. And, so I get what you're saying. In other words, training your body to engage everything that goes around it. So the synergistic muscles takes a new learning, right?
yeah.
And how would a training program change from, say, somebody goes in and they do 3 sets of 12 repetitions of an exercise? Would
Yeah.
that change with your method
Yeah.
of training?
So what I've developed with my other co-founder Philip is, we call it intentional movement. That's the movement practice of our center, and we have fascial contouring, which is the manual therapy that we apply at the center. But the movement practice, intentional movement, is basically bringing it back to the fundamentals, and we coach you through those steps. No weights involved, just your own body weight. so that you can see how the whole gym, in a sense, exists inside of your body. But let's say we fast forward to what you're talking about. This person's now at a gym. It was actually, Phil and I had a blast going to the Y. A lot of my development comes from the wild, from nature, from, you know, hiking, climbing, biking, paddling, all doing all these different types of sports. And Phil's background is more in powerlifting. So
Oh,
when I
wow.
first moved out to Victoria, we would go and I would join Phil at the gym, and people would always give us these kind of weird looks because we would be in and out in an hour, and we would only go 2 to 3 times a week. Yet we kept getting stronger. We kept getting stronger.
Yeah, well, I can tell your physique is incredible.
Yeah.
So
So,
if that's how you got your physique, clearly a lot of people have a lot to learn from what you're doing.
well, I stopped accepting that things have to be a certain way because that's how they've been taught. You see, the thing with beliefs is that you will always find evidence to support whatever you believe. So you have to challenge your beliefs. If you believe something just because you were told something, like I believe that there's origin insertion, that there's agonist antagonist because I was told, and never questioning that, I would just go on my merry way, wondering why certain parts of me aren't doing so well. Because I'm going to the gym 5 days a week, I'm doing 2 hours, you know, like why am I hurting more? Why am I breaking down? So you have to challenge and you have to explore. And a lot of what we developed is through our own somatic experience, our own inner exploration, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, finding the science to support our own findings. We even went as far as we have a 3D body scanner that we use at the center to scan people before and after, because we can have drastic changes in people in 10 days. Um,
Wow.
anyway, that's its own talk. I'm going to
Right.
go back to the main point. So we were going very infrequently and getting these incredible results. People were like, what the hell are these guys doing? Because we would do a half hour of intentional movement, our training program that we do, which is going through 25 different movement patterns, 3 for the neck, 3 for the core, 11 for the arms, and 8 for the legs. Half hour of that, and then we go a half hour into the gym. And we only do 1 set of everything for 6 to 8 reps. That's it.
Hey,
but
yo, nice.
so what we realized, there's a lot of misconceptions in the gym culture. One of them, let's go over them. No pain, no gain.
Mm-hmm.
You have to realize pain is communication. Not all pain is bad, but some pain is very bad. Like let's explore pain for a moment. You know, burning, ticklish, even though it's not pain, it's a sensation. Burning, ticklish. These are signs that fascia is being affected. Burning is shearing a little bit faster than it would like. Ticklish, it's very restricted. We see that commonly in people. Where they're most restricted also tends to be where they're most ticklish. Again, not a rule, but a strong guideline. What about achy, dull pains? That's usually muscle related. What about a deep penetrating pain? That's usually bone related. What about numb and tingly? Well, that's usually nerve related with a chronic compression, meaning long term.
Mm-hmm.
Or what about sharp shooting pain? And that also tends to be nerve related in an acute instance, meaning short term, like, ow, I just like, I got a zing, right? So
I
there's all
gotta
these different
sing.
types of pain. Pain is more than one thing. So you have to pay attention. What's the type of discomfort that you're experiencing?
Mm,
And to be able to discern the good pain from the bad pain, because ultimately it's communication. So oftentimes where people have a lot of intensity and discomfort, it might be that there's just an imbalance of how the force is moving through the body.
right.
So that's something to reset. The other thing we're demystifying too is it's quality over quantity. Like I said, when we did go to the gym, it'd be 2 to 3 times a week for an hour tops. And it was putting more attention on quality of movement, eliminating momentum, slow and controlled. And it's interesting, you go back to some of these ancient martial arts and you see how like a lot of the movements are done very, very slowly, or they learn how to block very, very slowly. Because by hardwiring a slow engagement pattern, you're training the body to be able to get into a position extremely fast. Slow is
Interesting.
smooth, smooth is fast, right? So that's one of the concepts. And then the idea that you got to create micro tears. You hear this everywhere in gym culture. You got to get those micro tears because it's going to damage the muscle tissue, and then they're going to heal up, they're going to repair, and they're going to build back stronger. Okay, here's
I've heard
something.
it so many times. My
Here's
smile is out to here because I've been doing this for 20 years, right? So
let's
you're
whip
like,
this in the butt. Here's something to consider. You don't want to tear the muscles because you'll see a lot of people that go for those tears, and yeah, more is better. You'll notice they have more hypertrophy, they have more larger muscles, but they
yeah.
start losing their range of motion.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you should be able to develop a significant amount of strength while maintaining, or in some cases, even increasing your flexibility.
That's really funny. It's an interesting that you say that because it's bringing me back to the concept of good quality muscle versus bad quality muscle. And I remember when we used to zoom in, so let's say magnify muscle tissue. What you're referring to is you can work out and have the results that you want and only have the good quality muscle tissue. And good quality muscle tissue came with obviously good nutrition and proper movement versus the bad quality tissue. You see all the sarcomeres are looking like a total mess. And that came from obviously, like, yes, very heavy lifting, but unfortunately, what comes with the bodybuilding world is also very poor nutrition. In other words, they feed themselves with all these horrible supplements,
Mm-hmm.
which rebuilds the muscle, but not in the best most it rebuilds the muscle very badly, and so it looks awful under the microscope. And yes, obviously if you have an ugly looking muscle tissue on a microscopic level, then your contractions and extent and contraction extension is not going to be as efficient.
Mm-hmm.
does
That's
that
right.
does that fit
Yeah,
into
so
what you're saying there?
absolutely. Let's
Mm.
deconstruct it even a little bit. So I'm going to the gym to create these micro tears so that I can rebuild, get bigger. But what's happening? Okay, so let's say you push it to the point where you tear,
Mm.
and now what happens is there's an inflammatory reaction.
Yep.
There's a rebuild that needs to take place, but before the rebuild can take place, you need to stabilize, you need to splint the area. So scar tissue starts to gob itself there. Think of Spider-Man just gobbing like gobs of web to just
Yep.
patch the holes. And then you rebuild, but these scar tissue gobs are still there. One of the nature of scar tissue as it matures, it tends to continue to contract more and more with each cellular succession. So that's a big reason why now all of a sudden their range of motion is shit. But they look big, like it's just aesthetics. It's not functional strength. It's not functional muscle development.
Oh yeah, because
So
I know these guys move like they'll pick up a box and pull a muscle.
yeah, yeah, it's very dysfunctional. So um, it's just really neat to showcase that. Think of people, think of your muscle, think of your body, think of your organism as another person. Yes, some people can learn through negative reinforcement by being beat up, but wouldn't it be nice to learn and to be educated on how to show up in a more positive way, a way that's encouraging? So that's what we do at the gym, is rather than beating our muscles, we say, okay, I'm just going to do 6 to 8 reps, and I'm just going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to bring you to the threshold. I'm going to challenge you so that you can see where I want you to meet me. And now I'm going to give you a few days, now that I've given you a glimpse of what I want, to develop and put the energy towards creating that for me.
That is so beautiful.
So now, instead of the cells having to put so many resources, because now these people take their big protein shakes, now all these resources from the cells are being allocated towards damage control, put out fires, repair. Now the cellular resources get put towards develop, grow, function. It doesn't have to put out any fires. So it can put all its attention towards enhancing,
Right.
improving.
So it's not putting toward, yeah, it's not repairing, it's actually just growing or expanding or nourishing. what is let's call it depleted at the moment. Just like when we feed ourselves because we need to replenish, as opposed to, well, if I'm hurt or beat up, then I have to heal first before I replenish.
Well, whatever state you're in, what you consume will be allocated towards whatever your body perceives the priority is. So let's say you have a sickness of some kind, but then all of a sudden you start getting chased by a large animal or someone very threatening. All your resources now say, I don't give a shit that you have a cold right now. I'm going to take all the blood flow and put it into your muscles so you can stand your ground or you can run like hell. Because remember, there's so much science to support the power of visualization, the power of imagery. They did it with pianists and they did it with basketball players, and I'm sure many other sports, of having two groups, two control groups, one that are actually performing the piece or doing the shots, and the other group that's just purely going through the mechanics of it, the motions of it in their mind. And in both cases, see improvements. Because the body doesn't know if it's actually happening or not. The brain doesn't know. So you can feed it all kinds of stuff. Like you can be going through all kinds of incredible motions, or any movement that, like, a lot of people aspire to do, a human flag or a handstand or whatever the hell it is. Create it in your mind from the first person perspective, and even layer that with the appropriate engagement, feeling it in your muscle. And guess what? Your body actually thinks you're doing it and will actually start meeting you there. So that's why, to get back to your point about nutrition, I could eat all the healthiest stuff, but if I'm caught in a sympathetic loop, if I'm caught in this huge cortisol dump state of mind, this fight or flight state of mind all the time, my body constantly thinks that I'm under threat and will allocate resources, nutrients into the muscles, prioritize them for the muscles over digestion, over being able to actually absorb. That's why, like, when people get really scared, they go into a strong parasympathetic response. A lot of people will pee themselves or puke because digestive processes are very much a part of the parasympathetic response. Parasympathetic, think of parachute opening up. Everything slows down. You feel safe. We call this the rest and digest or rest and recover state, where everything slows down. Your body knows it's safe. Now it says, great, I'm not under attack. Okay, extra blood flow in the body. Come back away from the muscles, back to the core, back to the vital organs, and let's really maximize our ability to absorb nutrients. That's one of the reasons it's so important to, when you are eating your meals, not to eat on the go. Slow down. Let your body know you're safe, and you'll actually be able to absorb these nutrients properly. And they'll actually be allocated properly.
Absolutely. I love everything that you're saying, because it really, globally, it really shows, it really says to show your body some love and some respect, as opposed to beating it up and killing it the way that we tend to think that it needs to be in the gym.
That's right.
And so it's a very, let's call it a conscious way of training. And not only is it, yes, more beautiful and let's call it more loving, it also brings more results, contrary to popular beliefs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're the embodiments of it. Like, I can't dispute it because I've trialed both. And I've tasted both. And in my body, I'm 35 now, and I'm more vital than I've ever been. Because my body's now able to constantly put energy towards connection, communication, not having to do damage control as much. It's amazing. And this potential exists in everyone. There is nothing special about me. Everything that's in me is in every one of you. Like, we all came in the same type of vessel with the same types of potentials. So that's the cool thing. And we've seen it in people who are, the oldest person we treated was actually 82, and she gained almost an inch back in her height. And her digestive issues went down significantly because we realized she had these fascial bands, these fascial compressions over the abdomen that hadn't been addressed. So it's never too late. The cells are always willing to express in a new way. They just need a new environment. They need a new program to be brought in. That's it. Because all the cells are doing are just responding and mirroring back whatever input we give it. So if we keep being rolling your shoulders, you're like, I don't want to have my shoulders roll forward. But when you're not paying attention, you keep being in this position, guess what? Your body's just responding to what it thinks you want. It's like, oh, but you keep doing this for 10 hours out of the day, so this must be what you want. This actually takes a lot of muscular active effort to support what should be a 10-pound head is now a 30-pound head. And so what I'll do for you, not to you, what I'll do for you is create this scaffolding system using the fascial network. I'll create new pathways, new scaffolds, and support you here. You're welcome. Now we can conserve energy, because that's an important thing that nature likes to do, is conserve energy. So now instead of being in this position and requiring active muscular effort, you can hold this position with passive effort. You're welcome. And now you're like, oh crap, this actually really sucks because it's causing compression in my facets and my discs and my spine, and I'm getting all kinds of numbness and tingling into my hands now. That's not good. I should go into proper posture, which is a centrated joint, neutral alignment joint. Oh shit, but now this takes active effort. I can't sustain that. And so that's one of the reasons why we're able to get such long-term results with a lot of people, is because the manual therapy helps remove these tensions, these fascial holds that have formed as a result of disuse or maybe misuse or maybe even trauma. So now you're free. But if we leave it at that, you're going to go back to the default pattern, because that's all the cells know how to express. Or if I just show you how to be more appropriately aligned, but we don't do anything about these holds that have actually formed, you're constantly going to feel like you're in a tug of war against your body. So that's why you have to overlay the two. You have to dovetail the two, so that as you unlock these restrictions, you also overlay a better understanding of how to move through space.
It's like a
And then,
synergistic.
yeah, with all those principles. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. That's why, like, I agree with the articles that say running is the worst thing you could ever do for your body, and the ones that say running is the best thing you could ever do for your body. Because at the end of the day, it's how are you doing it? It's not just going through space. Same with yoga. It could completely enhance you or completely destroy you. Same with swimming, even just walking. How are you walking? You're taking about 20,000 steps a day. If you're walking with this like feet out posture, just like waddling back and forth, you're disconnected from your core. You're causing a lot of compressions through the structure, and you're training your glutes to be short and tight, which over time could lead to other issues like sciatica, or well, referred to as piriformis syndrome, because one of the external rotators in your butt can start compressing the sciatic nerve because of this adaptive shortening based on how you're walking. So it's a misconception to think, oh, I want to do something nice for my body, I'm going to start running, or I'm going to start whatever. You have to pay attention to how you're doing it, because you might think you're doing your body a favor, only to later find out that this whole time you've been engaging in your activity, you've actually been causing more and more damage unknowingly.
That's usually how people discover they've been moving badly.
And we're now living proof. Like Phil's 53, I'm 35, and we're more like, a good way to tell if you've been engaging properly throughout your movement practice, whatever it is that at the end of it, ideally, you don't feel any pain. You don't feel worn out by it.
You mean right after?
Yeah, after, and even a few days later, like with Phil and I, when we do our max days, a very common term again in the gym world is DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, which happens 24 to 48 hours after activity.
Right.
And even that gets significantly mitigated. I've had, and like actually with Ariane, my partner, we went a few days ago and did a 13-hour peak exploration up in Strathcona Park. We were hiking for 13 hours straight from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. We gained a lot of elevation, all kinds of different environments. And the next day I was squatting and upright and twisting and totally fine. Again, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. What you're saying is phenomenal. And I know there's so much more that you could be saying about what you do. I hear it. There's like, I have questions that could lead you to other conversations and stuff like that. And although everything that you said in this has opened up a whole new realm of what people can take home and think about when they walk to the gym, and also their preconceptions of what it's like to go to the gym. A lot of people don't want to go to the gym because it's like, well, it's hard work, or I'm just going to do it. I have to do it way too often, or I only have a certain amount of time. I don't have enough time, so I won't see results. All of those thoughts that stop people from going to the gym, with what you've said today, can have them think again about all of that.
Consider this too. The whole gym exists inside your body. For real. Oh, you want to do bicep curls to get bigger biceps? Okay. Like let's do this together right now, everyone.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, you're doing this with me.
Yeah, I'm doing this.
Okay, first, feel like you're floating inside your body. Feel expansive. Okay?
Yeah.
Light up those triceps, light up those biceps together.
Yep.
Come on up. Using your breath, bonus points.
I want the
Go back down. Oh, you want a 10-pound weight? Okay, create it. Create the resistance. You have a 10-pound weight in your hand. Okay. That wasn't too bad. Okay, let's put a 25-pound weight in our hands.
Wola, wola.
Whoa, jump. Get in there. Go deep. Go big. What's that feel like? You have it in your hands. Create it. Whatever you think 25 pounds is. Okay, slow and control back down. What about a 50-pound weight? 100. Come on.
I never lifted 50 pounds before in my life.
Right now. You're doing it
now
right now.
I can do it.
You got it. You're doing it. Do you get it?
Red as I'm doing this.
Do you get it?
Awesome. Yeah, totally. Totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Listen, Stephan, thank you so much for introducing everyone to these, I don't want to call them new concepts because they're not, but this new way of thinking when it comes to fitness or even just movement. Forget, not just fitness, but movement. And I want to learn more about what you do. Hopefully we'll have you back on the show sometime in the future and we can tap onto some more stuff. You have other stuff you bring onto the table, right?
Absolutely. Like the other thing I'm developing right now is a system I call kinetic intelligence, where it's to use to determine and develop movement skills, movement mastery skills. So where we identify different aspects of movement and how to measure them, but also refine them and develop them. So that's the project I'm working on right now as well.
Interesting. If anybody wants to reach you, I'm going to put your website and your Facebook link here at the bottom of the screen in the description. If you've enjoyed this conversation, you're enjoying the show, click the like and subscribe button here at the bottom of the screen. And thank you so much for being on the show, Stephan. You've clearly, I love the way you think, and you are definitely a warrior. And I look forward to having you on the show again.
Thank you. The last thing I'll say, drip,
yes,
drip,
please.
drip. Water cracks the stone. It's the little things that make the biggest difference.
Okay, so I have to be able to introduce you while looking at the camera and not screwing this up. Stephan Guenette, you are the co-founder of IMfit Innovations. You're also the co-founder of Kinetic Intelligence. I'm going to say that. Fascial contouring and intentional movement. Okay, Stephan Guenette, you are the co-founder of IMfit, and I'm gonna
co-founder of IMfit Health Innovations.
Okay, hang on a second. I gotta get this right. Yeah.
And founder of Kinetic Intelligence.
It's IMfit Innovations and Kinetic Intelligence.
IMfit
You are founder. You're founder of Kinetic Intelligence. Yes.
Yeah, and co-founder of IMfit Health Innovations.
Yes. Okay. Kinetic Intelligence. That's like part of my language. I should totally know this. Welcome to the Reroot webinar. My name is Cynthia Leconte, and I am sitting here today with Stephan Guenette, co-founder of IMfit Health Innovations and founder of
Dun, 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 dun. Kinetic intelligence.
Kinetic intelligence.
It's
Kinetic
a
intelligence.
system.
Kinetic intelligence. Okay. Start this again. If I screw that up, we'll start over.